This is The Roadmap with Ted Jenkin.
Hey everybody, this is Ted Jenkin and welcome to another episode of The Roadmap, exclusively here on America's Small Business Network. Always go to ASBN.com. I'm excited every week to bring you some of the brightest and best CEOs and entrepreneurs and business owners. And every week we're talking to business owners about how you start businesses, how you scale them, and maybe one day exit stage left. And I have to tell you, so many business owners that I talk to around the country ask me all kinds of questions like, do I need an operating agreement? Should I have a buy-sell agreement? What do I do when I sell my business? So it's important to have a good attorney and to know how these things work. I've got Travis Townsend with me today. He's a good friend also. He's a managing partner in your firm, and Townsend and Lockett is growing like crazy right now. So I just want to know, like, just to start, because you worked for a big law firm one day and then you chose to break it on your own. So to a degree, you had to become your own entrepreneur.
Absolutely.
How did you decide when to cut the cord?
So it's interesting. I'd always kind of wanted to be an entrepreneur and start my own practice before I went to law school, but the trade that I was going to, mergers and acquisitions, you just don't hang your own shingle out, right? Like people are not letting you buy and sell businesses right out of law school. So I had to go to big law to kind of learn my craft. But truthfully, I spent a lot of time trying to diversify my specific skill set. I knew I needed to know just meat and potatoes, mergers, acquisitions, but I also needed to learn how to finance businesses.
Right.
And those are two skill sets that you kind of don't always get to do in one particular place. But I knew I needed to know both from a private equity funding and a institutional financing standpoint. And I really figured after I saw enough of the full scope from start to finish, both from the finance, the actual execution of a merger and acquisition, divestitures, all the different varieties, it was time to kind of get out there and then just take that leap and do it myself.
How do you know when you got out on your own? I imagine that one of the challenges is pricing, meaning that, I see there are some attorneys that might charge $1,000 an hour and there's some that charge $250 an hour.
Absolutely.
How do you decide that pricing? I know how it works in some businesses. I could never figure out how it works in the attorney business.
It's similar. I mean, it's difficult to figure out. A lot of people do kind of do different things, but for us, we did some research by just kind of talking to people who are both in different levels of the practice. So folks who are in big law, we knew we had that skill set. So that was kind of our anchor. We were not gonna kind of shrink ourselves and our value by saying, okay, we're out on our own, and so we got to go basement bottom. But we did have to test the market and find out what people who were in the market were actually charging, who were kind of in smaller spaces. And then we kind of looked in there and just kind of did an analysis. And then ultimately, you just got to kind of test it, right? Like you're out there, you're pitching, you're serving, you're telling people what your offerings are. Some folks are biting, some folks aren't. Based on kind of where we wanted to be and who we wanted to service and how quick and kind of how consistently they accepted our pricing, it's kind of where we landed.
Is your target market now as entrepreneurs? Is that where you focus most of your energy?
I would say we probably kind of have like a third, 3/3, kind of a third, 35% of our market is entrepreneurs. We do a lot with entrepreneurs. We do a good large market segment of our client base, so big corporate, and then kind of middle market. They've been there, good long-standing small businesses. They've been around for a while. They've scaled. That's kind of how we've broken our business.
So let's break this down because, every day in America, there are people that get up and go, I want to start a business. And sometimes what I feel like could be the death of people a little bit is they go, hey, buddy, let's get in this. We'll be 50-50. We're all for one and one for all. I feel like so many people cheap out when they start a business. They go, I'm not going to pay a lawyer $500 an hour, but I know you're going to pay one way or the other. You either pay now or pay later. Let's just start with the operating agreement. Like, how important is that to have a structured agreement, either you yourself or you with your partners when you start a business?
It's paramount. I mean, it is paramount. It is, the countries, no matter, they have a constitution. Businesses need a constitution. You can look at kind of, state law, but for your particular life, your universe, your country, your business, you need something that everybody can look to and say, these are the rules. These are the expectations.
Right.
And to that point, I mean, you hit it so well. You pay now or you pay later. I had a middle school teacher, principal, and that's what they always told us. We were getting into something. It's like, look, don't cheap out. You're either gonna pay now or you're gonna pay later in my office. Do what we say, and that's how it goes. If you don't get an operating agreement, thinking we'll just figure it out, you're going to call lawyers later. And what I always tell people, you're likely to call one lawyer for the company who represents the company to help you get that together. But when you don't do that later, there's going to at least, if there's two people, there's going to at least be two lawyers. Somebody's representing this person, somebody's representing that person. And if the cap table is larger than that, there might be a number of lawyers, and those fees add up. And so it's just better, and not to mention the pain and the angst. So get a lawyer on the front end to just kind of lay out the land.
Trav, isn't the deadlock for a lot of people that two people go into business, we're all for one for all. That's the way all businesses start. Yeah. We're going to conquer the world. We're going to make things happen. Then real life happens in a 50-50 partnership. And inevitably, I feel like every one of those that I see, somebody feels like they're pulling their weight just a little bit more than the other person in here. And a lot of operating agreements don't allow owners to settle disputes, do they, right? And why is that so important?
They don't, and you're right. It's, as I tell people, like, look, getting into business like getting into marriage. You find out, some people need to lay on the left side. We both need to lay on the left side, not till you're there, right? And so try to get ahead of that by having an operating agreement. And you're right. Whether one person's pulling more weight than the other, there's at least the perception, right?
That's
so
right.
you need to get ahead
Whether
of that.
It's true or not.
Yeah, it's going to feel that way regardless, right? No, just like those relationship tensions. And so having a way to decide, well, how do we, when it's 50-50 and you want to go left and I want to go right, I mean, think about it. You just got to have a way to break that tie. And there are several ways to do it. I often recommend, folks are business savvy and they have a nice business network. Well, refer to a third party that we can agree to, that if we have a good business issue that we just disagree on, maybe we refer it to that person. Those are really good strategies for kind of resolving it. But there are several ways. And then ultimately, if we have a complete impasse, you should have a way to
You got to have a way to
separate.
Yeah, because I think I saw a business where one owner used to get highly intoxicated all the time and couldn't really get fired from the business because the operating agreement, they were partners, but there was nothing in there that said if you did things that were immoral, unethical, or whatever it may be, well, you can't lose your share of the partnership and you can't be fired from the company. So it created a massive gridlock. Have you seen things like that before?
Well, I see that all the time. And in fact, one of the solutions we offer is that, we recommend, people say, one person's going to put in money and one person's going to put in sweat equity, or they're both going to put in sweat equity.
Right.
But what happens when nobody's sweating or one party's not sweating, right? You actually should bind those commitments with an employment agreement. Even though, you're thinking, well, it's just us and we control everything. There should be an employment agreement between each party with respect to the work that they're going to be doing and the company. And so that you can outline specific expectations. And usually an employment agreement will give you an opportunity to say, your employment can be terminated. And then if your employment is terminated, then you have to either sell your shares, your interests back to the company. And that's a two-step way of making sure you handle that.
Right.
But you know what else it does? It actually it reinforces, more than likely, you never have to use that separation feature, because when there are guidelines that let people know they can be separated, they behave.
Yeah, you never have those vows like when you get married that say, I take the, and you have those whole things. Now, the employment agreement is critical though, right? If you have a poorly drafted employment agreement, it could really hurt you if you've got to fire somebody down the road.
It's the second thing, right? So obviously when we're talking about being partners, there needs to be an agreement that says what we get, what we do, how do we settle differences. But that employment agreement, the bodies make things go. And so if you don't have good expectations on the roles and what people need to be doing, what perks they get, there's just a lot of things. You look at your activity, your life, there's family, and then the next most sort of involved thing in any person's life is their work.
Yeah.
And they count
sometimes on work over family for some people.
A lot of people.
Yeah.
They're expecting to how do they feed their family, get paid, perks, taking care of medical, authority, who do they report to? All of that stuff needs to be clear. I mean, the more clear you are in writing, the smoother everything goes, both in operation and separation.
Trav, talk to us about what I think is becoming a growing topic. I did a small op-ed on this in CNBC, and this whole language around non-compete and non-solicit, I feel like it's become a hotter topic. Not so much on the non-solicit side, because I think people that work for a company realize I can't go steal all the customers. Right. But this whole language of non-compete and you can't work in our industry and you can't have a job anywhere, is this stuff even going to hold up anymore?
It is becoming less sort of powerful. For a long time, it was very. I mean, we live in America in a space where we believe you can contract to agree. You can agree to anything, and that includes saying I won't do certain things, and with respect to working or competing or working for other people. So that is sort of the core principle and ethos that kind of allowed those restrictive covenants to get a lot of power for years. But we also, the good news is we have a balance in that we believe in work and industry, and we don't want to restrict people who want to go out and do work from having an opportunity to do that and be compensated. So a lot of the states, courts, statutes are starting to change such that, look, you can restrict folks, but you can't have these overbroad situations where it's like, you can't even work in a place where we never did work, never contemplated work. But if you try to do what we do over there, you're restricted. They're bringing it down to be more reasonable.
Travis, how do you manage a business owner's emotions? And I'm going to give you a couple of examples here that sometimes it just may make sense to pay somebody severance, no matter how much you don't like them, rather than get a lawsuit and have them sign like a release of claims type agreement. Yeah. Somebody leaves your company, they steal a few clients, and it may going to cost you X amount of dollars to go try to chase them down. You're probably going to lose anyway. When the owners are like, but it's the principle here. How do you help them get past that?
Well, I got two choices. The first one I usually like to grab them and slap them, get a hold of this segment. But when that doesn't work, I really think most people, if you give them an opportunity to settle down, and if you can put sort of the business principles in front of them. And I've been practicing long enough, I really leverage my experience as well.
Right.
Folks who are in the moment, it helps them to see and understand that, look, I've seen this 1,000 times. And let me give you a couple of scenarios where people chose to dig their heels and do what you wanted to do. They're still mired down. They lost X amount of money. They forewent other opportunities just focusing on this thing. And that's usually what I tell them, because that really is it. Look, pay the money, move on. You built this business, and if you built this business, that means you are able to see other opportunities, and you should focus on those. And once you do that, once they kind of get a minute to breathe on that, and I help them put it in context of this is about dollars and cents. I'm not saying give them a pass. I'm saying focus on you and your success, because this person, once they're gone, they're just going to be a memory. You have a business to run.
Totally.
A lot of other people counting on you. Focus on them.
That's hard for a new business owner. Sometimes they're like, oh, I'm going to win the battle, but you're going to lose the war. You're going to lose the war. In the end, it's going to cost you more on your P&L. What do you think about trademarking? Is that important for a business owner to trademark name?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a reason why. So there's levels to trademarking. We actually recognize, the laws recognize a trademark even without filing, although you don't get all the protections, because it is so important. It's just naturally there. Like, people's brand is their brand. And when you do good work or provide a good quality product, you've invested R&D and you've worked out all the kinks, you've went through up years and down years, you've employee issues and all that, and you've built the thing that now people come to you because of your brand. You don't want somebody else taking advantage of all your hard work, all of that credibility you built. So you must protect it. You must create something around it that helps people recognize when they're engaging you. And when you see somebody trading on that, you need to be aggressive about fighting that and making sure.
If you don't do it, someone could crawl in and get your trademark and say, well, you really weren't using it and I did, and now it's mine.
It's all about recognition. And if at some point, some people thinking they're working with them and it's 50-50 or 30-40, 60-40, you don't necessarily have that trade. You could have had a trademark and it gets degraded because you're not protecting it. That's how trademarks work. Once there is confusion and there's acceptable confusion, then you don't really have the same strength of claim that, hey, they're trading off my name. It's like, well, I'm trading off my name now because I've been doing this for 5 years and you never said anything, right? And people know us for what we do, just know this brand and they know us. So you want to be aggressive about protecting it, establishing a brand, and then making sure nobody's leveraging it.
So I've grown my business. I get to a point where I'm thinking, hey, maybe I want to sell this. I feel like a lot of industries, you hit a certain level of EBITDA, people start knocking on your door, sending you email saying, I might want to take a look at your company. When I look at that LOI and I try to sell the business and I get that indication of interest or a letter of intent or however you want to call it, what are the key things that I should be looking for as a business owner? Because it generally, I know it's non-binding, but those terms really do kind of spell out what's going to be in the purchase agreement, don't they?
Yeah, and some of it is non-binding. I mean, most good letters of intent, if you got a lawyer there, there's going to be some pieces that are binding. I mean, we're going to always have confidentiality, exclusivity. Those things are going to be binding,
right.
Which takes me to kind of the thing you want to look for. If you are a hot target, if you've been getting a lot of letters, you want to fight the exclusivity requirement as much as you can because you're like, look, I have people who are already interested. If you got one person that's coming to you, maybe, but even then, you never know what type of that might just been the first person to knock on the door.
Right.
10 more are coming. So you kind of want to fight that as a company who is getting interest. You want to fight but then flip side, you want strong confidentiality because they're looking at you.
Yeah.
And most times you might get an LOI or IOI, and they're really just kind of want to know what's going on. So they'll bait you in.
And if your employees find out or whatever it may be, you got big problems.
Exactly. So you got to be strong on the confidentiality. Nobody talks to anybody. Nobody lets anybody know that the terms that we're talking about or that we're even talking. You want to make sure you got.
Do you think on the front end, most business owners don't have solid NDAs or mutual NDAs, non-disclosure agreements? Are they worth nothing or are they worth something?
Oh no, they're worth everything.
They are.
We
they can
encourage,
hold up if somebody leaks out your stuff, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you got to use those, and you want to ward off the person who's really just using or dangling an opportunity to get more information about the competition in the market. So,
which is what it is half the time. People are kicking tires and trying to peek under the hood to figure out what's what.
Absolutely.
And what about the backside of this? I get to the purchase agreement. You've obviously walked a lot of businesses through this and getting to the final stage. I feel like that's where everything gets a little bit tense down in that purchase agreement time. What do you think maybe the number one mistake people make when they get into that process of signing the purchase agreement?
So one is disclosure. And so the way the purchase agreement works is kind of, not to get too technical, but the real point is we're going to talk about what we are as a seller. I'm going to make representations and warranties. And then if those things are not true, you're probably going to be able to sue me because they weren't true. And so there's this dynamic but you get to disclose the stuff, even the bad stuff, just basic stuff and the bad stuff. And I have clients from time to time, they have some bad stuff. They might even try to hide it. They want to hide it from the buyer, and they might even try to hide it from me. And I tell them, look, this is actually the time to tell it. Because more than likely, the buyer has a bigger plan.
Yeah, they're down the road anyway.
They have a bigger plan, and they'll eat some of but they just need to know. Now, don't give them any gimmies by not disclosing it. If you disclose it, it's like a get out of jail. It's off the hook. Once they've been told and they still buy, you're scot-free. Now, where they get you is you didn't tell them, then they close and they find out, and then they got to pay some money out. They come after you.
Yeah, and if they claw back money from you, if there's any kind of earn out or whatever it may be, you could lose part of the deal transaction.
The value for you. The value of it is just getting chipped away at it. And sometimes it can be significant. And usually it's the scariest, the bigger things that they really don't want to disclose because those have the biggest possible impact, right? So that's it. Those are the ones you really want to disclose.
Got two final questions for you. In a service business, because a lot of people that are watching may have a service business, have you had to fire a client before? And how did you decide when you let somebody go?
Absolutely. I mean, it's dollars and cents. Sometimes, I think the good news of being an entrepreneur is I get to select the type of people I work with and the type of people I work for. And one of the reasons why I started my firm is I wanted to work with good people and I wanted to enjoy the work that I did. And that includes working with people that are pleasant and nice. Look, we got some sharks that are clients, but be respectful, And so when a client is either making the people in my team miserable, such that my culture, my actual business culture, my firm culture is being degraded because people don't want to work on those matters and everybody's upset. That's a moment when you consider whether or not, obviously, dollars and cents matter. But then dollars and cents. If you are spending more time on a client than the actual value and compensation you're getting, that's pretty straightforward. But a lot of people don't know how to make that calculation. They don't actually spend the time to consider, are we getting more? And because they're not thinking about what they're actually missing. Some clients, they pay on time, but they require so much time and energy that you don't have opportunity to go get other clients or service other clients who are better, more friendly, and might have additional opportunities to give you compensation at the level that'll make them want to, because you're babysitting.
Right.
So making the assessment, the cost benefit of having a client and continuing to have them versus what I'm losing that I don't recognize I'm losing. A client didn't actually walk out; they just didn't bring more in.
I love it. So you got to ask yourself when you build that operating agreement, put up your right hand, is this mine, my left hand, and say, we, the business. Maybe that's the way that should start in there. Trav, thanks so much for coming on the program today. I appreciate it. And folks, when you're thinking about getting a great attorney, these are the kind of attorneys that you want to have. You want to have people that know their stuff, do it from cradle to grave. They figure out how to help protect your business, because inevitably, one thing every business owner knows that's been in business for a long period of time, somebody's going to sue you. It's going to happen. So you got to make sure that you protect yourself. That's this episode of The Roadmap. I'm Ted Jenkins, always exclusively here on America's Small Business Network. Thanks.
Thanks for watching The Roadmap with Ted Jenkins.